those four requirements. Earlier in the presentation, di ba, sinabi na the Orbeta study showed that less than 10% of the 16,000 schools have met those four conditions. So I'm sorry if I missed it, but was that refuted? Was that study refuted? Because that's what we're asking for, no? How many have met? Ito na nga, less than 10% yung sagot doon. Does anyone refute that?
Director Ariola, you may respond. Nakamute po kayo, Director.
The Monje or Beta, Francisco Abrigo, and Capone study mentioned by, sorry, I don't know your position, Ms. Ambat, tama ba?
Yes. As to the 19 languages, Mr. Chair, we're all very much aware that the four minimum requirements were developed before the implementation. But as to the procured materials for the different schools, that's one thing that we have to get from that of the Bureau of Learning Resources, because they have the inventory. We'll try to take a look on it now, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, so it seems clear to me that short of any other data being provided, that's what we have. This study that says that less than 10% of the 16,000 schools have met the four minimum requirements. So unless something else is presented to us, I'll go with that because that's what we have. And I have not heard that being refuted. So the conclusion that I would tend to draw at this point in time is, if in fact we cannot provide that environment to make the mother tongue, the use of the mother tongue successful, then there may be really a need to restudy this, no? Kasi I was listening intently dun sa presentation wherein it was discussed na the model that was assumed to be rolled out is yung a single mother tongue lang ang gagamitin. And apparently it's very difficult because there are a lot of communities that have that are multilingual, no? And I know this for a fact because when I go around, and even here in Metro Manila, it's very common that mother and father are from a different region altogether. So that's why my belief has always been we are multilingual people. So that's where I am, Mr. Chairman. Maybe some comments. If we can't make it work since how many years, no? At a decade na ba? More than a decade, then is it time to rethink how we're doing it? And that's actually why we're having this hearing, di ba, Mr. Chairman? We're rethinking, kasi if by now we don't have the numbers that show, we can't even ensure that those minimum standards were provided, then mahirap sigurong gawin yun. And my pitch lang naman here for the English language, and I'll do it later on when it's my turn na, is that with the boom in internet access, the access to different languages are there, including English. So I just want to put that out there because later on I'll discuss this further. So yun lang yung concern ko. What do we do now that it doesn't appear that those conditions are being met in all these schools? So if you can't roll it out this way, then what other way can you roll out an effective language program?
Senator Pia, let me just flash on the screen the study that you mentioned, and that I saw that study also, and that seems to be the only study conducted on the four minima requirements, and we just flashed it on the side that only less than 10%, you're right, no? Less than 10% have actually completed the four minimum requirements. 49%, one out of the four, no? That's why you're absolutely correct. Unless this is refuted by actual data on the ground, we just have to take this as it is, no? That's what we're asking.
And maybe dive in deeper na ano yung kasi dito sa study niyo,
the four minimum requirements, 49%, one out of the four, no? That's why you're absolutely correct. Unless this is refuted by actual data on the ground, we just have to take this as it is. No, that's why we're asking.
And maybe dive in deeper na ano yung kasi dito sa study niyo, Mr. Chairman, 2 out of the 4 requirements, 25% lang ang nakakomply, di ba? 25% lang. So, gaano kahirap ba itong mga requirements na to? Para talagang, para imagine, 1 lang ang nakakomply ng almost 50%, 49. 1 out of 4 lang ang nakakomply, 25%. So, parang, I mean, sorry, 1 out of 4 requirements are met by only 50% met 1 out of 4. Di ba, 49, 50% met 1 out of 4 lang. So, how hard are these conditions? How can we expect na naman this program to be effective if ganito? And aside from this independent study, wala namang study si DepEd. So, ang hirap, Mr. Chairman. Ang hirap.
17% grammar and 12% dictionary. These are all components of that minima requirements. And my personal take on this, after wrote big books, less than only 21% documented orthography, 17% grammar, and 12% dictionary. These are all components of that minima requirements. And my personal take on this, after almost 10 years of implementing, at least naman yung the basic, like the big books, no, which is the easiest to make, should be 100%. But we're still at this point, less than 50% have big books. And the most, I think for me, no, the most crucial is the orthography, that only 21% have been documented. And this is also considering that we have more than 100 different languages that we need to document the orthography. So again, this is from the PIDS study that I also want to ask DepEd if they have an update on this study, or they also acknowledge that this study is reflective of the realities on the ground. No? So I want to ask DepEd their comments on this study. Asa Kambat or Director Ariola, any comments? Because we don't have, that's why we're asking the most latest data, because these are the materials that we have. These are the data that we have right now from independent studies. So we want to get an update from you if these numbers have changed. No? Any comments from DepEd?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Yusek.
Yeah. I think it is what it is right now, no, in terms of the rolling out of the mother tongue as a subject. And this is what I was mentioning earlier, that we intend already to abandon mother tongue as a subject, which is a separate learning area in the curriculum. And we will simply use the mother tongue, which is already the vernacular of the community, the neighbors, and the family, as part of the medium of instruction, no longer as a subject to be offered from grade 1 to grade 3. So, in other words, in the whole revision of the K to 12 or K to 3 curriculum, we will be freeing up 50 minutes of teaching the mother tongue as a subject and rechannel it to our national reading program and national math program. But we will not abandon mother tongue as the medium in the teaching of subjects in K to 3, except the subjects of Filipino and English, Mr. Chair.
Yusek and DepEd, these studies were based on the DO that requires that 4 minimum requirements for mother tongue as medium of instruction. No? So, in other words, these are the conditions that should be fulfilled before using mother tongue as a medium of instruction. So my point here being is we have to be ready, in order to have a successful rollout of mother tongue, especially as medium of instruction. We're not even talking about a subject. But based on these data, it seems to me that those four minimum conditions that DepEd laid out in your DepEd order has not been fulfilled. So, in other words, we don't have the foundation to claim that it's successful because based on these minimum requirements, it's definitely below the ideal number.
Mr. Chairman, before
Go ahead.
we get a response,
Yeah, Senator Ping, go ahead.
can we put those four minimum conditions on record? Paulit-ulit tayo doon, but I'm sorry if I missed it, but I'm also asking my team, didn't nila narinig kung ano ba yung four minimum conditions.
DepEd, can you mention the four minimum conditions according to your DepEd order DO 21 series of 2019? Ito. Oo. Babasahin ko na lang.
Summary
Chair?
lang na, baka 20 pages yan. Summary lang.
Go ahead, Director Ariola.
For the four minimal requirements, we have the orthography, the grammar, the dictionary, and the learning resources like the small books and big books.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you
is
po.
covered by DO 21 series of 2019, tama ba?
Yes po.
Sige, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So, just submit to us, Director Ariola, if you are saying that you have the most recent data on the implementation of the four minimum requirements, just submit to us, an updated survey or updated study from DepEd on these four minimum requirements.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair. In fact, I have here with me, it's just given by BLR, the allocation report per regional office, particularly on the four minimum requirements. So we'll just furnish your office, Mr. Chair, this report.
Sige, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Again, after almost 10 years of implementation of the mother tongue, has DepEd conducted an impact study to this effect so that we will know the overall effectiveness of mother tongue to our learners? Have we conducted a in-depth study? Kasi we can already track the trend. It's already 10 years. And we can definitely track the trend on all subjects, because the ones you've shown earlier are mostly for mother tongue or for languages, but also other subjects such as math, science, and the rest. Have we conducted any impact study to that effect? Go ahead, Director Ariola.
As far as the Bureau is concerned, Mr. Chair, we have not conducted any impact study.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you plan to conduct any formal impact study later on? Because that's important, because we're now is the department planning to do any impact study?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, with
Can I request from the resource persons to turn off? I think there are some. Yusek, I think there are some open Zoom in your office. Nag-feedback siya ngayon. May I request your staff to turn it off?
Siya po mismo, sir.
Mr. Chair, wala po rito.
Okay. I think it's your device that creates the feedback. Sige, go
Chairman,
ahead, Yusek.
baka dyan yung
Yeah.
may
Yeah, Mr.
naka-open.
Chair, with
Kasi
respect to
we can hear the feedback when you're talking, Mr. Chairman. So baka somebody in the hearing room.
Okay. All right. Yusek, go ahead. Yusek.
yeah, Mr. Chair, is that clear?
Better, better. Yusek, you disappeared. We cannot hear you. Your mic. Yusek, we cannot hear you. Yusek. Nawala yung audio nyo, Yusek.
Mr. Chair, am I clear?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, good. Good, good.
Well, we were engaging the innovations for poverty action with respect to the impact of the mother tongue as a medium of instruction in our K to 3, and we intend to partner with them to do the impact study, Mr. Chair.
When will that commence, and when can we see the results?
We're having a fast track, Mr. Chair. Hopefully, we can finish with the terms of our engagement immediately because it is something that we need to know right away. We don't want to be blinded with the issues of the mother tongue as a medium of instruction on how it impacts our learners in the K to 3, Mr. Chair.
Okay, no, because the reason why I ask is number one is, of course, the mother tongue has been implemented for quite some time already, and we can see trends, and it's important to know whether this policy change is in fact effective in terms of learner performance. And at the same time, I noticed that the department is also coming up with policy changes. No? So it's good to be guided accordingly with an impact study. No? And it's good to know whether those policies are well grounded on research and studies. No? So I hope that we can get those get the results as soon as possible, and so that we will also be guided on our recommendation. Yeah. Senator Pia, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah.
Senator Pia.
Before we leave this topic on the impact and the conditions that I asked about and was clarified na that was in DO 21. Tama ba? DO 21 series 2019. Anyway, di ba nga it's a condition, which means before the rollout, they should have been complied with, because early in the hearing, how many languages did we mention? Did I hear mention that are already in place as the mother tongue, uses as a mother tongue in schools? Is it 19? Tama ba yung narinig ko? So 19. So we have rolled out 19 mother tongue programs, and yet in the schools, negligible ang amount, or sabi nga, less than 10% of the 16,000 schools have met the conditions. So how could we have rolled that out without those conditions being met? I recall, Mr. Chairman, when I was the chairman of the committee on education, there would be questions from other senators just asking how many mother tongue programs have been rolled out, and you just hear the numbers being you just hear the responses being, oh, ito na, 5 na, 7 na, 10 na. But no one talked about these conditions. And I'm really shocked, Your Honor, to hear now that this rollout happened without those conditions being met. So can you clarify that before I get further shocked, or the shock embeds in me, that they were conditions, right? Because that's what I don't have the copy of the DO on me. So I'm just clarifying that they are conditions, right?
Deped, you may respond. Asek Ambat or Yusek Densing.
Director Oriola, can you respond? Diyan na mute.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair and Honorable Pia, Actually, the 19 languages was not implemented without the developed four minima requirements. You must have noted also in our presentation a while back that there are also other languages with prepared minima requirements, and we did not start implementing them because all these materials have to go through review and finalization first. So that I'm very sure that this 19 languages met the four minimum requirements before DepEd even started their implementation. Thank you po, ma'am.
Okay, well then, Mr. Chairman, that's very confusing to me because the earlier presentation less than 5 minutes ago by His Honor himself, Mr. Chairman, you showed the chart, right? That showed that only 9% have complied with the four. And now Director Ariola has said that for the 19 schools, the four condition at first your statement was the minimum floor. I'm not sure if you said floor, but later on you said the four were met. So ano ba talaga? Mr. Chairman, it's different from what you showed us, right? It's your document that you showed, and it's different from what the director is saying. So I don't want to have to be bothered with confusing data, but that is what I have. That's what we have right now.
Yes, correct, Senator Pia. That was derived from the PIDS study, and from our research, that's the only study that looked at the four minimum requirements that are set by DepEd themselves, no, in order to ascertain the successful rollout of mother tongue. That's why those are the basics, and we want to understand whether the basics have been fulfilled or not. Yes, Director Ariola.
Mr. Chair, just a clarification on my statement a while back. I was referring to the conditions as to when a mother tongue can already be implemented, so that these 19 languages were not implemented without first and foremost having the four minima requirements developed. Most probably, what you're referring to are whether or not the materials were made available in the schools, and that's the figure that the Bureau of Learning Resources need to provide. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'm manifesting my continuing confusion. Maybe I think what director is trying to say is that those conditions were met in the preparation, but those conditions are not seen in the schools. So ang requirement nito is yung orthography, grammar, dictionary. So may dictionary kayo sa head office pero walang dictionary sa school. Sorry, hindi ko talaga maintindihan.
Ma'am, because we're referring to grade one, it's in grade one where we have the four minima requirements. I just would like to concretize this with my experience as one among the writers in Ilocano, particularly for grade one. Before we even implemented the mother tongue, we made sure that we were able to develop all these four minima requirements, ma'am. But as to whether or not these four minima requirements were made available to all learners, it's that's the data that I mentioned earlier that will be submitted later, because the data will come from the BLR po, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, but to conclude, for now, Mr. Chairman, the only data we have is the data from PITS, which ASEC Ambat presented, and which our chairman also included in his presentation. We provided more details, and that doesn't look good. So unless you will have contrary data, what we have right now is not looking good. And I still continue to express my concern that if in fact what you're saying, Director Ariola, is that these conditions were met, but that hindi nyo alam if the schools or the students have access to it, then that's a problem, because I would assume that they need the schools and their teachers there and the students need access to it. Mr. Chairman, can I just make a quick comment on the other topic that we're leaving, which is the impact study on the use of mother tongue? Can I just
Yes,
make
go
a
ahead.
quick comment?
Yes, go ahead,
Yeah.
Senator Pia.
So I also was listening, and you asked about the impact study, and the response given Mr. Chairman is that there is no impact study yet. So what I would like to point out, Your Honor, is not the same impact study, because I don't know of one either. But what I would like to put on record is that, and I would be happy if there's anyone who's contrary information on this. The data that I have is that English is one of the top three spoken languages of the world. Historically, our country, our people have had an advantage in speaking English language. However, our proficiency in English has continually dropped every year. In 2016, we were number 13 out of 72 countries. In 2017, we were number 15 out of 80 countries. In 2018, number 14, so nag-improve ng konti, out of 88 countries. In 2019, we were number 20 out of 100 countries. And in 2020, we were number 27 out of 100 countries. So although we are second highest in Asia, Singapore is placed first. And again, I will point out the information that I have. A big chunk of our economy revolves around the proficient use of the English language. I do believe that the impact on the businesses, and there are impact studies by the businesses, show that they have had difficulty finding employees who are proficient in the English language. They have had to have extra courses, on-site courses, because the proficiency in English has dropped. So wala kayong study on your mother tongue program on the impact of the use of mother tongue, but there are studies on the impact on our proficiency in the English language. If I've cited anything that is wrong or incorrect, I would be happy to hear any contrary view, but these are apparently the studies that we have on hand. Clearly, the need for English proficiency is an economic opportunity for us, both locally within the country, not to say that they have to go out of the country. In fact, the BPO industry, that our Filipino kababayan can stay in the country and use their proficiency in the English language. So I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman. I have more that I can share later on, but those are the studies that we have now. And I want to know what we're going to do about it, because it doesn't seem that we're improving in any way in our proficiency in the English language. Whatever program we have been implementing has not helped us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, DepEd. You may respond to that. Any comments?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead. You said.
This is precisely why we are aligning our, at least the future curriculum or program of DepEd with the pronouncement of the President, and of course seconded by our Secretary and Vice President Sara Duterte, to really focus on the bilingual program. In fact, despite the fact that we will be using continuously use the mother tongue for K to 3, we've already readying ourselves to make that major pivot to a full bilingual program if a law will be passed amending or repealing Section 4 of Republic Act 10533, suspending the use of mother tongue as a medium of instruction for K to 3. We are ready to make that pivot, but in the meantime, since this is the mandate of the law, we will continuously use the mother tongue as part of the languages or medium of instruction in the K to 3 program. So, Mr. Chairman, our position is the same as that of Senator Pierre Cayetano, in accordance with the pronouncement of President Bongbong Marcos, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, just one more clarification on that, if I may proceed.
Go ahead.
The Yusek Linsing, you mentioned the need for an amendment to the law. In all the hearings I've attended over the years, my understanding was you can continue, you are continually using the mother tongue, but there is nothing that prevents you, or for when I say you, the teachers, from using English also to improve the proficiency of English. In other words, this is how I talk to many people. I'll give a speech, I'll say it either in predominantly Filipino, and then I will emphasize my points in English, or because I love languages, I will speak in Bisaya, and then I will emphasize it in Filipino or English. But that there's no reason you cannot do that naman, di ba? And like again, sorry, I'm just a mother. I don't have a PhD in linguistics or in education, but um, I have been trying to teach my son different languages, and what I'll do is I'll speak to him in Spanish, and I'm not a native Spanish speaker either. I'm just a student, and then I'll wait for his response, and kung ano, I'll say it again in Filipino or English. Wala namang masama na gawin yun, di ba? Um, is there anything wrong by yun nga, being multilingual, because we are a multilingual country, and in no less than the DepEd presentation, the difficulty faced in implementing the mother tongue was that in most environments, multilingual nga yung mga bata, di ba? Eh paano nakatira nga yan sa let's say sa north, no? Nakatira nga sa Ilocos, pero yung mga parents naman galing pala sa Visayas or the other way around, di ba? So what are we gonna do? I'm just saying we embrace it, and we use our multilingual background to communicate better. Again, I'm just a mother, I'm not an educator, I'm just sharing my experience. Kasi parang we're so bogged down, and I haven't seen any improvement since this program was implemented. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pia. Just to go back on that for minimum requirements, I just saw here in the division order, there's a rapid appraisal of languages for mother tongue based multilingual education. And this is a rapid appraisal to schools division, no? So that we will know exactly how ready are we in the implementation of the mother tongue. So, Director Ariola, have you compiled the results of this rapid appraisal? Ito, I'll show it on the screen. I saw in your document. Meron ba tayong compilation nito? Because this clearly spells out the 4 minimum requirements. Have the DepEd compiled? Have you executed this rapid appraisal?
Mr. Chair, we did not consolidate at the central office.
Okay, and hindi ba it defeats the purpose of that getting ready, because this is actually a good mechanism to know exactly where we are on the ground, because this is where the problem comes in, and based on the PIDS study, the implementation on the ground is uneven, no? And in order to know the readiness and make sure that the implementation is even, you came out with this rapid appraisal. Pero now you're telling us that you have not compiled the results of this rapid appraisal. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, this is used actually for schools in order for them to decide as to the language or the mother tongue that they need to implement, Mr. Chair.
Yes, correct. But have you compiled at least, because it will give you a good measure on the readiness?
Honestly, Mr. Chair, we did not compile all this. Thank you.
Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
you go ahead, Senator Pia.
Yeah, remember earlier, just a few minutes ago, I was saying that I was confused because if these are conditions that need to be met, and the studies that we cited show that less than 10% have met all 4 conditions, then how could there have been a rollout of the 19 languages? And the explanation given by Director Ariola was that she is certain that these conditions were met in their assessment, etc. So I said, na, so that means from the head office. But at this point, they cannot ascertain that they were available in the schools. And Mr. Chairman, tingnan na lang natin kung part 2, literature reading materials, big books and small books. How in the world could you roll that out if that is only available in the head office? How? 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 I mean, again, with all apologies, sorry, I am not a teacher. I am not an educator by training, but I grew up with a teacher. My mom had a school, and one of the biggest resources was books all around. Big books, small books, lahat ng klaseng books. So kung wala ka man lang yan, I don't know how the 19 could have been rolled out. Why would they even have been rolled out? And if the dictionary, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure all of us here can agree that at some point in our life, whether it's grade 1, grade 3, grade 5, I don't know, we all were supposed to go to the dictionary, right, and look up the words that we're using. If this isn't even available in the classrooms or in a school, how could you even roll out that language? I go back to my recommendation, which may seem very, very, non-scientific to the PhDs here. Pero if you use it, because yun yung language ng communication ng mga bata, then use it, di ba, to explain the point, no? I let the record show that Yusek Densing is nodding his head, di ba? I don't believe there's anything that prevents us from continually using it. Even any amendment to the law, ako yung haharang na sabihin yung hindi naman pwedeng gamitin yun. Dahil yun ang language na naiintindihan ng bata, di ba? Walang problema yun. Pero let's be clear on our direction, recognizing English as a international language, as Filipino, as our national language, and then the mother tongue to enhance and ensure the learning experience, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pia, and I shared your sentiments that I'm trying to understand first the readiness of our schools, no, and because we have to be sure that our schools are ready to implement this program on a massive scale, and it defeats the purpose if the theory is positive, but on the school level, on a classroom level, it's a different world when you implement the program, no? And I'm also quite disappointed that this rapid assessment was never collated to give us information and data on the ground. And at the same time, there's no report from the ground also on the implementation of the 4 minimum requirements. So I think just to move forward, let's. I want to request from DepEd to start collating this information, start putting together information on the minima requirements, and just submit to us later on. And submit to us also, USEC Densing, a timetable of that impact study. No, I think it's about time to already implement it because there's debate. No, there's talk about mother tongue, and it's very difficult to make policy recommendations without any study, no, any honest to goodness study and evidence, no. So, but since you are already moving to that direction, please submit to us a schedule of that impact study.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I note also, again, no, I want to focus first on the basics. I note also from the presentation of Asik Ambat earlier that setup, 72,000 teachers were trained, no? But that's out of 300,000 educators to be trained. So we're now still at 23% in terms of training. Is this correct, ASEC, that a large part of our teachers have not been trained on the mother tongue, and the use of mother tongue as medium of instruction?
Mr. Chair, there are still teachers needing training. The target provided by BLD is that we need to train 305,099 educators, but so far we are only at 78,872. But please take note, Mr. Chair, that some of the trainings can be done at the division level and at the regional level. So the data that we have and contained in the presentation are just those submitted to the central office, but definitely our field offices are also training. But like what was stated, we are still below our target of educators to be trained, Mr. Chair.
But ASEC, again, we have to put this in context. We've been implementing this for the last 10 years. And so what you're saying is we haven't trained the 305,000 teachers in the use of mother tongue after 10 years.
Remaining, sir, ititrain pa in the coming months, in the coming years, sir.
Correct. So we haven't trained the 305.
Sir, a portion of it has been trained. Yun pong 78,800.
Correct. So let's say that the 230
Yes, sir.
have
Remaining,
not been trained.
remaining, sir, yes.
Okay. All right. And it's also, again, to compare it to the readiness. So our schools are not ready. Our teachers are also not ready. Because based on your information, only 23% have been trained here. Oh. Only 23% have been trained. So that's not a good sign also in terms of making sure that the mother tongue is successfully implemented on the ground. And again, if